Yo guys, we leveled up the BusyWorks Beats AI mastering. It now has a new interface and it sounds way better in my opinion. So what we're going to do is use this on a couple EDM dance tracks. Thanks to Cashmere for sending his pack over, volume 5. But first we're going to start on this classic film clip. So all you guys have to do is literally click the one huge button here. This is Auto Master. It will set the levels for you. So I recommend you guys play the loudest part of your song for this to work properly. We now have a loading bar that tells you, and it will tell you the stuff that it does also.
Well, the secret is you got to coordinate. Most people don't.
All right, so it tells us that it tamed the harshness. It tells us that we added weight to it, widened the stereo image, de-essed the sibilance, and then we matched our target in this case. So basically, we can still mess with the output. I recommend, especially for speech and vocals, you guys turn up the output or just any of these knobs. Again, the whole point of this plugin is to be simple. It's not supposed to be super complex, but if you guys want to get super complex, you guys can go into the new EQ mode that now has a better visual. We have a better visual for the compressors and all the different sections here if you guys want to get more granular, okay?
Every year, you do something new. Now,
so here's before.
where'd you get the mushroom shirt?
I'm trying to impress you. You know that.
I know it. Now, where'd you get the mushroom
Here's
shirt?
after.
I got to know.
Well, the secret is you got to coordinate. Most people don't coordinate. See, you got to coordinate.
Now, I want you guys to pay attention to before as I skip ahead in this song.
Mushroom
I
shirt,
mean, this
mushroom.
vocal.
Mushroom
I said
shirt.
mushroom shirt.
You won't notice this, but there's bubbles in the actual recording.
Gerard, did you know your pops?
So if you guys listen, it's like boiling water.
Gerard, did you know your pops had a mushroom belt on? Yes.
Now, you wouldn't even have heard this unless we use this plugin. So another thing is we can clean up some of the background.
I was.
Now, this is not a magical button that will just make your whole record just sound crazy good if it's poorly recorded, but it does clean up the harsh areas. So let's turn up the clean
I
knob.
was.
Go on.
I had to stop that shit.
No, you got to keep going.
Okay.
Now,
Let's run it from the
I
top.
was. Every year, you do something new. Now,
Now let's turn
where'd you
some
get the
knobs.
mushroom shirt?
I'm trying to impress you. You know that.
I know it. Now, where'd you get the mushroom shirt? I got to know.
Well, the secret is you got to coordinate. Most people don't coordinate. See, you got to coordinate. See, when you saw me, you saw the mushroom
I said
shirt.
mushroom shirt.
Bang, mushroom shirt.
Mushroom shirt.
But see, you can't stop with the mushroom shirt. You
I
got
was.
to go on.
I had to stop that shit.
No, you got to keep going.
Okay.
Now, let me show you something. Look at that.
Oh, you got on a mushroom belt. Gerard, did you know your pops had a mushroom belt on? Yes.
Here's
Don't
before.
stop there, see? You got to
Can't
keep
have-
going.
What you got?
Here's
Mushroom
after.
ring?
Yes, good idea. Look what I got.
Gerard, did you know on the inside was special mushrooms? Yes.
All right, so that's from a classic movie called Boomerang for those who are curious. Next, let's move into Cashmere's tracks. So all we have to do to reset this for the new song is click here and then initialize, and then we'll start back from 0 so you guys can run different songs through here. So let's run some EDM stuff. We usually don't cover EDM, but Cashmere sent this pack over. So now we have a lot of tracks we can work with. So here's before. Let's hit Auto Master. And the goal is just to make it better in every way. Here's before. Here's after. Now you guys can push this further. So it tells you the LUFS over here. If you guys want to push into -8, -6, it depends on the genre. But use your ear, just turn up the output without even turning these knobs. And then we can mess with these other knobs for more details, like turbo is a great thing to add more fullness to a track. I might want to turn down the volume before I turn this up. Now that adds dimension to it. Here's before. Here's after. We can make the track wider. Add more punch to a track. We've added a new clipper mode. If you guys go to switch the clipper mode to punch mode, it's a little more crunchy, but it gives you more of a bouncy effect. It's definitely more dynamic, but Smart Clip is where we usually set it. We could add more bass. Now this track doesn't really need more bass, but we can add more if we want it. On the EQ, we can set the high pass filter. adjust this. Say you want more highs, turn up the highs. Let's say you want to adjust the low mids on the side. You can go to 0.3 here and then switch this to the side mode and then turn this down. Clean up the track so you guys can do the microscopic adjustments here. Whoops. And then you could just reset if you guys want to start from scratch with a brand new EQ curvature. So here's before. And we're turning the knobs all the way up just to show you guys that you can push this stuff. Don't be afraid to push the sound. Next, let's move to 174 BPM. Such a strange BPM. All right, let's go here and play this next track. Now, most of the settings can, you know, be applied to other tracks too. So let's start from this one's bright. So let's initialize this. Let's hit Auto Master. So here's before. We can even tame some of this with the clean knob. I've added a new feature too under the clean area under shape. You guys can do post clipper or pre clipper. Post clipper is going to give you more of a, I'll say dynamic sound, but basically this is after all the processing. So in the case that the saturation and the harmonics are too bright in the upper end, you guys can add the de-esser after the clipper. So for a genre like this where it's a lot of bright frequencies, we could change the range to make it more aggressive. I'm lowering the threshold just so I can hear what it's taking away. So here's before. Let's see what turbo does to this track. So it definitely adds like a forward backward dimension to it. Now again, we have the EQ where we can adjust some of the brightness if it's too bright. You just turn this down. I think it's a little squelchy around like 3K-ish area. Here's where we can target just that one specific thing. So I made a graphic EQ because I want you guys to be able to target those specific things about the whole mix that might be just a little too aggressive. Whereas these tools weren't built to target every single frequency. The clean tool, I mean. So this way you can push further into here's before. Let's see what happens if we switch the clipper to punch mode for this track. We can also go into the dynamics area and add more detail to, again, we'll do a longer tutorial when over time. Right now I'm just trying to show you guys what it sounds like. And we can also turn up the mid compressor here. There's a lot of things we can do to really shape the sound here. So that one's based on taste because it's such a bare track. Let's move to the next track, 174. So here we're gonna start from initialization here. Let's hit Auto Master. Now I meant to say, which I did by accident here, is you can resize the window, guys. So if you want it smaller, you can make it smaller. I recommend keeping it somewhere around this size is optimal in my opinion. Okay. Any smaller than this, it just, the menus get a little crunchy. So hit Auto Master. Before. Here's after. Here's before. Here's after. All right, so these tracks are very bright, so that mid focus can help tracks that are not as bright, but as you guys can hear, these tracks are super bright, so we don't need to really mess with the mid focus as much. But that's why I have the system turning the knobs for you guys, so you don't have to overthink. You could just worry about shaping the tone, or you could shape it manually, turning up the knobs. On this next track, let's actually just turn knobs instead of having the AI master work. So let's say, well, first I want it loud. Actually, the first step is setting the gain stage. This is why I have the auto master as well, because it auto gain stages for you. Gain staging is basically turning up or down a signal into a process so that the process does it whatever the word is, like the best it could do efficiently or to its optimal ability. So basically, there's a volume that when you go into this plugin, it's usually the best working. So it just really depends on the song. There's no like magical number. If you guys need a number, negative 12 dB going into the plugin is enough headroom to, you know, have this plugin work well. So right now we're just pushing either into the plugin or turning it down. So let's turn it down just a little bit so that we have room to actually add stuff. So here's before. So loudness definitely helps those dynamics, but punch, it was built for dynamics. So here's before. You can really feel the beat instead of just hearing it. And then turbo, like I said, it just adds fullness to everything. Dimension. Let's turn up the mid so it balances with those lows. And then let's see how wide we can make this. So here's before. And again, we could turn up the output as another additional loudness factor. Now this one doesn't need bass. It has a lot of bass. Turn up the output. Now we're just driving the signal now. I think the signal is a little too low heavy, so we're gonna use the EQ to turn down some of these lows. Now the EQ spots are set, you know, where I would normally have these set all the time, like my target hot spots for an EQ, so you guys don't have to overthink where to place the EQ nodes up here. Now you can either grab a node or just use these dials, these knobs. So let's turn down the bass. It's very like boomy. Here's before. Even adding that clean knob, basically it's very subtle now. Before it was a little more obvious, but now it's more subtle. And then again, we can go to the shape mode and do post or pre-clip, or I'd recommend post clip for most songs. Here's before. Here's after. now a living and breathing thing, whereas before it just didn't have that life factor. And that's the power of analog. And we've infused analog inside of the plugin, so you guys don't have to spend tens of thousands. I spent so much money on analog, from services like Access Analog to having the analog gear. I spent over like tens of thousands of dollars, okay, on analog stuff. And so I was like, why? And I gave my stuff away, funny enough. But I was like, I always wanted the analog sound. All right, now let's wait for the signal to go back up. And then we're gonna click Auto Master for this one. All right, to smooth the track, so let's see what the system does. Again, first it gain stages, then it runs through all those logical conditions like I showed you guys before. Here's before. Here's after. Is that a little turbo? See if we can make it a little wider. And then let's crank up the output just to see how loud we can get it, even though it's very loud. So again, let's go to the middle part of this track. Here's before. Here's after. Even add more saturation on the Excite tab. We have triode and pentode modes. Pentode is more general. I'd say triode is more specific. All right, so let's see what the next track is. So it says 110 BPM. All right, now I'm showing you guys dance stuff just to show you guys we have applied this to AI samples. We've applied this to hip hop. It's not just a hip hop plugin. I'm competing with the world's top mastering plugins, from iZotope Ozone, Masterplan by Music Hack, online mastering services, BandLab, Lander, Waves Mastering. One's called Aria Mastering. So all the mastering services we went against, and I am trying to make my plugin better. And we did a blind test in the last couple videos so you guys can see the results. All right, so let's hit here. And I want to make my plugin easier. So this is a funk track. Now it's already flatlined across, so I'm showing you guys you can even master mastered tracks. So it's already flatlined. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's hit Auto Master. Let's turn it on. Off. And then on. Definitely makes it wider and brighter. Let's loop this part. Here's before. That little turbo. Adds an extra dimension. Got some more punch. So we took an already flatline track and we made it even better. Here's before. Here's after. It's like we stepped into the song. That's the best way I can really explain this plugin. Is it makes stuff feel alive, and it's like you step into the music. Here's before. Here's after. You can also push the output. Now this will be pushing this extremely loud. I don't think it needs to be any more loud than this, any louder. So we can turn it up. I just think that's just unnecessarily loud, but it can go louder. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys. All right, now let's go to 115 for this next track here. And where we at here? 115. This says Pop House. So even using the same settings as the other track, which is a whole different genre, funk. You know, a good mastering tool, you shouldn't have to tweak it 1,000 times to get it to sound good. That's what I learned about analog gear, is like I barely touch the knobs half the time. All right, let's hit Auto Master. So this will be available at busyworksbeats.com/AI mastering. Here's before. Here's after. Now, even though this track is more of a low frequency track, let's see how we can brighten it up a little bit and add that density to it. So there's a bright area under the EQ. We can mess with this, or we could just draw in the EQ. Let's add this turbo. Widen out this track a little bit. We could add mid focus for more high frequency focus. And that helps that percussion stand out a little bit better. So here's the before. Here's after. Like I said, it's like stepping into the song. Now let's go to 128 BPM and play this next track. This track is Pop House. So let's see what it is. So these are very soft sounds here. So this isn't routed. So let me route this to channel. I think this wasn't supposed to be here, but we'll use this one anyway. All right, so we're gonna go to presets, initialize, run the Auto Master. Here's before. Here's after. Now on this one we could add more turbo and more level. So here's before. After, very full. So I will say version 8 is definitely my most proud release so far. I was definitely always proud of my releases, but version 8 is a true where I'm trying to go with the sound. Version 7, we were in version 6 and all that. We were trying to fine tune the elements that it brought out. Like version 7 was all about clarity, loudness, brightness. Okay. But now version 8 just pulls everything where it needs to be for every style track, and that's why I'm super proud of it, because the other tracks, you might load in a super bright track and it might not hit the same way as if you did a hip-hop track. So basically this is so good across all the genres that I'm now super pumped to share this with you guys. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/AI mastering. So this track is too loud going in, so let's initialize. Hit Auto Master, so we'll adjust the headroom for us. All right, so it took out 6 dB almost. Going in. Now let's try a different clipper here, a punch clip, for a more bouncy track like this. We could blend the level as well. Now in the mix, it should have turned that lead down just a little bit. So let's see if we can find that spot where it's just too aggressive. It's around that 3K zone, so we're just gonna turn that down. And now we can push into the plugin harder. And don't forget the output volume actually adds more loudness. Now we're adding a little crunch here, but it adds to the sound of this track. Here's before. Let's say you guys don't like that crunch. You could always dial it back with the mix level under the shape. Or we could just switch it back to where it was, which is Smart Clip. So we're getting this to hit around -7, -6 without it feeling like it's falling apart. I'm sure we could turn this way, way up. Let me see how loud we can actually crank this thing. Yeah, I'd say it falls apart around probably 4, -3 LUFS. But the fact that we could even get it that loud, I'm gonna turn it up just so we can hear the character. Here's before. I would never push this song this loud, but I'm just showing you guys. Here's before. Here's after. That lead would have to be turned way down for me to crank it even further. But the fact that we could push this thing into -4 territory without it feeling like it's falling apart, and that's shows. So around -5, -6 is where it kind of, gets that crunchier tone. All right, let's try a different track here. Let's see what else we can find. We have a track at 128 BPM, and this track it says Shaman. So let's see what this is. All right, so let's run the Auto Master. Definitely evened out the tone. Here's before. Here's after. I feel like we can make it a little louder though. Let's crank the turbo, make it louder. Here's before. Let's mess with the width. Now let's turn up the output. The fact that I could push 4 more dB out of this thing. So here's before. I'm telling you guys, I am so proud of this product here, because I'm always thinking I can do better. And then when it actually becomes better and better and better, you're like, how did this become even better? It shocks me every time. Version 8 was one of those shocking jumps where now, like I said, it applies to all these different genres. Okay, whereas before, I'm gonna show you guys when we get to the AI music ones, they're very bright. So version 7, because it was brighter, cleaner, wider, brighter, cleaner, louder, it tended to fight with those brighter tracks. And now I figured out a system that doesn't fight with the brighter tracks as much. So there was basically always a trade-off in the old versions. And again, Black Box bundle owners will get this as an update. Just check your emails. But for everybody else, go to busyworksbeats.com/AI master. AI mastering. Go to busyworksbeats.com/AI or go to busyworksbeats.com/AI mastering is what I meant to say. I'll leave a link below the video. All right, here's before. This one didn't have, okay, I thought it had a kick in here, but like a kick and a snare me. All right, so let's mess with this. Let's add the turbo. Like I said, guys, don't be afraid to turn up the output because this goes into our limiters, so don't be afraid to turn up the output. Here's before. And you know, before it was hitting at -3. But even out of 3 dB of nominal gain, it sounds like we went up 12 dB. So here's before. Here's after. That's the power of good mastering. All right, so again, if you got, what I might do is take songs from our Discord and run it through this just to show you guys how this thing could transform pretty much anything. I might do that live. That might be fun. So that you guys can hear real songs run through this thing. I don't think this track is routed. Hold on, guys. Yeah, oops. All right. Let's do this one, and then we're going to do some AI samples just to show you guys what I mean with the AI stuff. Now, initially, the history of this plugin, the way the clean knob came about was I was trying to clean up AI samples. As you guys know, I use samples to make beats sometimes on tutorials and stuff, and we chop it up and everything, but it was still very shiny and sibilant and harsh. And so I was like, let me make a tool that cleans up those samples. But then it ended up morphing into this whole thing. So that's where this all started, was trying to clean up. All right, now let's run the AI master. Snare's a little loud in the mix, but let's let this go. Some punch to it. Again, like I said, guys, just because the Automaster puts something somewhere, that's, you know, I want you guys to experiment by turning knobs, because you can push songs further if you wanted to. Don't be afraid to turn knobs. So here's before. Let me run this. For the beginning portion, I feel like the second half, that snare is a little loud. All right, so here's before, here's after. Here's before. It's like we hear the song, but when we turn this on, it's like we're in the song. And that's the power of this new plugin. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys AI music, because I want to show you guys the difference in how we've handled version 8 versus version 7. I'm not going to pull up version 7 just to show you guys the difference. The main difference, though, is the brightness. So as you guys can hear, AI music is very bright. That the Automaster.
Supernatural feeling, sexual healing.
All right, so it still has this brightness, but it's not like piercingly bright. And if it is, turn up the clean knob, and then go to where it says shape, and then I recommend post clip. Now I'm going to change this to where you guys get it defaulted to post clip, so you don't have to keep doing that. But basically, just turn up the clean knob, and it doesn't feel like we're just removing the entire song. So just taming things.
Sexual healing.
Then we could crank these other knobs even harder.
Shooting stars where you are.
Here's before.
Where you are.
Here's after.
Shooting stars where you are.
We're hitting -6 like it's nothing, okay? So that means your songs can get loud. And I've added a feature under the reference tool. You guys can actually switch out different references from streaming platforms to car venues. Let's turn this on so you guys can hear. So it's emulating laptop speakers. Let's switch it over to TV speakers, even club venues.
Supernatural feeling.
We even have inside the car cabinet.
Shooting stars where you are.
All right, so we even have streaming websites. Most of them are -14, so there's not much difference between them. But
Shooting stars.
so now you can hear what your song sounds like turned down. So even though we're hitting a -6 LUFS and it turns it down, doesn't mean that it's quiet. It's just turning it down.
Shooting stars
So here's before the plugin,
where you are.
after,
Supernatural feeling.
and that's at -14. Okay, as a target. That means we turn this thing down 8 dB or at 8 LUFS, and it still feels loud.
Shooting stars.
Let's try another track here. Now this one's more West, like hip hop. So let's start from scratch. Now this genre didn't need as much cleaning because it's not using as many cymbals. So again, run the Auto Master. I would even run the Auto Master on my own tracks, guys. So this isn't only for beginners. It helps set some of the ratios. And then from here, I'll work from this point. Let's turn up the loudness.
I love you. Ooh, baby, ooh, baby.
Here's before.
Ooh, baby, ooh, baby. I love you.
Is that a little clean in here because it is a little bright in some areas. Let's run that back.
Oh, baby,
Here's before.
ooh, baby. Ooh, I love you.
After.
I love you. Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. I love you. I love you.
Now we're pushing it really hard, y'all. Just showing you guys, like, don't be afraid to push these songs. All right. Now most of these characteristics are probably going to apply to this next track because it's a West Coast track.
So we won't need to change much of anything.
Here's before. And you guys can save presets, okay, to your preset list. I'll have presets for you guys right now. We were just redoing the browser. So here's before. Here's after.
West Coast, the best
You
coast.
can even do the undo button and redo button up here.
West Coast.
Here's before.
West Coast, the best coast. Got the best dro and the best hoes. California, A, West Coast all day. In the 64, jumping like Dr. Dre. West Coast, the best coast. Got the best dro and the best hoes. California, A, West Coast.
Now some of the sounds that are changing are on the file itself.
So
here's before.
West Coast, the best coast. Got the best dro and the best hoes. California, A, West Coast. coast all day in the 64 jumping like Dr. Dre.
All right, let's run this over a couple hip hop tracks as a bonus. Let me see how much time. If it's over 25 minutes, 40 minutes. Holy moly. All right, never mind. So in another video, we'll be showing off some hip hop tracks. I don't want to make this video an hour long. I can't believe we were talking for 40 minutes. Holy moly. But that is a new plugin. Go to busyworksbeats.com/AI mastering. Peace out, guys.